You're listening to episode 19 of Mike and Scott Read a Poem. This week, we'll be analyzing sonnet number 37. We also have a guest, Jim Bruce. So, of course, we're going to get really sad and talk about Shelley Duvall. Here's episode 19, sonnet 37.
Otherwise, it'll get you. Right?
Wow. What a terrifying song. The rhythm is going to get you.
And it will. Yeah. And it never tells you what the rhythm will do once it's gotten you.
It's too terrible.
But it's going to be messed up. Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to play it on the radio. That's how terrible things will get once the rhythm gets you.
There's a part in that they don't play very often where you get away from the rhythm, but then the rhythm captures your family. And that's even
the most
worse,
terrifying part.
It's doing stuff to your wife and kids, and it's terrible. Yeah, it's one of the worst Liam Neeson movies I've ever seen.
When the rhythm takes his family.
Yeah.
And then his special set of skills would be dancing?
I think that would be. I like this. Okay, this is what the show's about now. It's about Liam Neeson potential son movies.
All right, we'll see how many we spot this week. Now it's like a highlights magazine. For this episode of Mike and Scott Read a Poem, we want you to spot how many Liam Neeson films we come up with. The first thing that we have to talk about at the very top of the show, breaking news. We always have to answer the trivia question from last week. The question was, when is Jurassic World going to come out? Okay, and do you have a guess, Jim?
Never.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
Close, though.
Yeah. Mike, do you have a guess?
I'm guessing 5 years.
No.
I don't even know if they started shooting it.
No. They're much more ambitious than that.
Tomorrow.
June. It's just going to be released on the web. Here's Jurassic World.
YouTube exclusive.
And it's 5 minutes long. They call it Jurassic World. And they say it's canon. This is actually the fourth Jurassic Park movie. No, it's going to come out on June the 12th, 2015.
The whole movie is just the ticket booth because there's nothing wrong with the park. So it's like Clerks. It's like Clerks. It's just these body guys running the ticket clerk at Jurassic World.
That would be a terrific movie.
I think so, too. To be honest, I really would enjoy a movie where it was just the ticket booth at Jurassic Park. That would be
written
fun.
by Kevin Smith.
Oh, okay. Now we got to shoot that. Actually, what has to happen?
That'd be great.
Yeah, and the guy who works is Liam Neeson, by the way. So that's
Right.
Ding. If this was a video podcast, we'd have a little picture of Liam Neeson and like a counter incrementing every time.
Even if it's not, everybody should have that.
Yeah. If you're listening to this, what I want you to do is go and look up Liam Neeson, and hopefully we'll have that picture uploaded somewhere and make it really popular so you can see it.
Can I make an observation about Jurassic Park real quick?
Yes.
All right, so here's my observation, because I'm a little older than I think both you guys. But so when Jurassic Park came out, I was still young enough to be in love with the Hollywood blockbuster. So, I'm going to go see Jurassic Park. But I was a little too old to overly romanticize it. And now that there's people I know who are really excited about Jurassic World because when they went to see Jurassic Park, they were at an age where it felt like, we're seeing everything in it was new to them. They didn't recognize the Hollywood tricks you kind of get used to having played on you as you live. Mm-hmm. So people who are in their, say, 30s right now, so excited because they have such fond memories, Star Wars-like memories of going to see Jurassic Park, and that's interesting to me.
There's another option. There's somebody who isn't necessarily really looking forward to Jurassic World that much, but does think back to Jurassic Park in a very romantic way, and that would be me.
Yeah. You're not looking forward to the new one?
Well, no, I will go see it for sure. And also, by the way, it stars Chris Pratt, who's one of my new favorites. So
nice.
That has to be good. I can't imagine that he's not going to be funny in it.
When you're younger, it's so much easier to suspend disbelief.
Yeah.
And then you go back and, you get the sequel that you've been waiting for your entire life. And it's just not as easy to suspend that disbelief. And you're just like, ugh.
When I was a kid, I thought every movie was great. I don't care what movie you took me to. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I don't remember the first time that I saw a movie and said, that's a developmental marker in a person's life. It's like, remember the first time you were like, do it for me. Like, whoa, look at the sophisticated growing boy here who wasn't that into it.
I remember the first movie I didn't like, and it was only because I got I was being given a lesson because I went and saw one of the worst movies ever made and didn't know it, called Roadie. Is an amazing movie. Cast Meatloaf, Blondie's in the movie, and probably the Tubes were in it too or something, but it was Meatloaf and Blondie were the stars.
Oh, they were the headliners?
Yes, they were the stars of the movie, and it was called Roadie, and man, was it not a good movie. So I went, oh, that's what they mean when they say they didn't enjoy a movie, because, man, I sure did that thing where I didn't enjoy this.
All right. That's a nice memory that you have of a movie you didn't like. I know that it's not a good memory, but still, I wish I had that kind of movie. But speaking of sequels, Mike and I, on Mike and Scott Read a Poem, Mike and I are in the middle of a series of Shakespearean sonnets.
Okay.
There's like an episode going on. So this week on Mike and Scott Read a Poem, we are joined today by Jim Bruce. Jim Bruce is a very funny comedian. He has a great podcast called Who's This Now? You can find it on Stitcher, on iTunes, and he has a comedy special which you can get from his website. So Jim, tell us about your website.
Well, it's jimbrucecomedy.com, and you can buy my special. And if you are a fan of hilarious comedy and parental abuse and a brother who committed suicide, this is the comedy special for you. It's a very personal comedy special. Scott was actually there at the live taping. He saw it happen, and it's very personal. It turned out amazingly well, but honestly, if you're a comedy fan, it's an impressive thing to me to see a comedy special made by somebody for very little money that turned out very professional. So there you go, jimbrucecomedy.com.
Very good cameras.
Yeah, they were broadcast quality cameras. So the guys who did it, actually, I got a really good deal from some guys who work regularly on Telemundo. Get regular gigs working for Telemundo, recording, I'm sure stuff that jiggles, because that's what Telemundo is a lot of times.
It's got to be a good gig.
Yeah.
And it's very good comedy, too. That was almost a joke for me to say after you were done describing your special, for me to say, very good cameras. If there's one thing I'd like to say about this comedy and this comedian, have you seen this comedian special? Man, you should see the cameras.
Boy,
the cameras look good. The angles, the decisions that the director made in that comedy special were just the best. Oh, it's terrific. All right, so also there's a plot line to Mike and Scott Read a Poem. There's like 2 weeks ago, I kicked Mike off of the show, and so for the rest of the show, I just did a Mike imitation.
Okay,
and but then I brought him back, and
yeah, the Mike imitation was spot on.
Yeah, people couldn't tell, but then I brought him back, and then there seemed to be some question that maybe it was Mike the whole time, and that I wasn't actually here. So there was some question about that. So this week we decided what would be fun is for me to bring on somebody that I know, but I would just do an imitation of them. So this week I'm doing an imitation of Jim Bruce. So again, here's my Jim Bruce imitation.
Hey everybody, I'm Jim and I'm sad.
All right. And that's not only an imitation of what he sounds like, it's an imitation of something he would say.
Yeah. See, I did it. Exactly what I would say if I were Jim. I'm not, I'm Scott.
All right, but Jim, since I know Jim so well, I know exactly how he would interpret Shakespeare's sonnet number 37. So that's what we're going to read today. None of us have read it. Me, Jim, Mike, none of us have read it. We're going to read it tonight, and then we're going to analyze it for you. Then we're going to take a short break, and we're going to look up on Wikipedia and SparkNotes what the correct interpretation is, and we're going to trust it like it's the perfect analysis, and we're going to say whether we're going to come back and tell you if we are right or wrong. Is that a good description, Mike, of what we do?
That's perfect. That's perfect. So, Jim, do you have a website of your liking?
I do. I think I have
ShakespeareSonnets.com,
ShakespeareSonnets.com, sonnet number 37.
Nice.
Okay.
So
That's good.
While you were talking, I not only was doing my impression of Jim, but I was looking up this particular sonnet.
I say very clever things as him.
Oh, yeah. Because I always
Every
imagine
once in
he
a while.
would, because I'm a fan.
All right. Now here's something that I haven't even thought of until right now. Mike, would you like to have Jim read the poem, or is that putting too much on the guest?
No, I was actually thinking that it'd be nice because it's kind of like a rite of passage, you know?
Oh, wow. I didn't know
You
that
read
you
the
were...
poem and you're official.
Okay. Well, Jim, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think I feel great about it because obviously I already agreed a second ago as myself. I'm really into this, by the way. This works for me. Since I agreed, I'm
Takes
not
off all the pressure.
likely to disagree.
Yeah, like-
if I read it poorly, well, that's just how Scott would do an impression of Jim reading it
Yeah,
poorly.
that's such a bad impression.
Who knows? Maybe Jim would just read it great.
So we're about to find out as
right.
Jim Bruce reads us Sonnet 37 on Mike and Scott Read a Poem.
As a decrepit father takes delight to see his active child do deeds of youth, so I, made lame by fortune's dearest spite, take all my comfort of thy worth and truth. For whether beauty, birth, or wealth, or wit, or any of these all or more, entitled in they parts, do crown sit, I make my love engrafted to this store. So then I am not lame, poor, nor despised, whilst that the shadow doth give substance give, that I in thy abundance am sufficed, and by a part of all thy glory live. Look what is best, that best I wish in thee, this wish I have, then 10 times happy me.
Excellent.
Very nice
Excellent
reading.
read through, man.
Wasn't
Very
too
nice
bad.
reading.
Yeah.
It can get hard. Some of these words that haven't seen the light of day for 150 years.
Yeah, there was no real curveballs this time in the words.
Yeah, this is, Shakespeare's weird. He's weird because he was so, whoever he actually was, whether he was, as some people say, Kevin Bacon. No, nobody says that, but you know, what I mean.
Was he in that movie?
I bet he was.
And what's the name of that movie? Anonymous? The one where it was about Shakespeare. Remember, Mike, we looked that up? No?
I don't know that
Anonymous?
movie.
Moving on. It's a movie about we've talked about it on this show. By the way, I have
totally
to quiz
forget. Sorry.
I have to quiz Mike on this every now and then. Real fast, this is a side one. Mike, what's the name of the football movie that we talk about on this show?
Any Given Sunday.
Okay, and who's the star?
Al Pacino.
See, I told you you'd have it by now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to forget that anymore.
It's something I repeat to myself every time I wake up.
I don't think I've actually watched that movie.
No, there's a movie, I think it's called Anonymous, and it's about the conspiracy that maybe Shakespeare was not the person that wrote these plays.
Do you know what I often think about those particular conspiracies? That they're some of the dumbest, inconsequential conspiracies. Because of how far removed we are from when Shakespeare was alive, it makes no difference. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you found out,
that's true.
Oh, a different guy wrote him? Wow, but I still have to study him in high school and won't understand him for quite a while. All right.
It's kind of drama for drama's sake.
Yeah, the worst conspiracy I've ever heard is that Elvis, I don't know if you've heard this one, but it's sort of the same idea. The conspiracy is that Elvis is actually the baby that died at birth, and his brother Jesse lived. That's an actual conspiracy, that actually Elvis died at birth, and his brother Jesse is the one that we knew. But they were twins. How in the world could it make a difference? All that it meant is that they're dumb cracker parents, which it's totally believable. They went, I'm not sure which one died. I could believe that, and it's a non-controversy, but there's whole books about this
Yeah, not sure which one
non-controversy.
died.
that it doesn't matter what his name was at birth. He was the person that we know as Elvis, no matter what his birth name was.
Yeah, the only difference it possibly makes is that when he was driving a truck, that meant he didn't have a legitimate license. That's it. Maybe it matters a little bit to the trucking company he worked for before he became famous.
Well, I think for Social Security, no, you bring up a good point. Legally, the government should know which person is alive. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not all about Big Brother, but come on, get the paperwork straight.
Yeah, at least let us
Don't live
know.
under a false. I mean, legally. All right, so Sonnet 37. This one seems kind of straightforward to me. About I'm getting older, but you're still in the prime of your life, and I'm going to somehow take happiness in your happiness. Overall, that's what I'm getting. Anybody?
I see that too, and then I start to think about. So there's what the sonnet's about, and I think that's absolutely what it's about. The sonnet's about an older fella seeing youth, but then also it brings to mind that that's not necessarily a good thing, and I wonder if he intends it as a good thing or not, because just like a father going to watch his son play baseball, it's better if he just enjoys that his son's having a good time rather than try to enjoy youth through his son, because then he becomes the worst parent on the field, right? And in general, I think that's true in love too. Like if you have a father who's happy that you've found love, great. But if your father is always kind of talking to your girlfriend a little too much and being a little too flirtatious, and then that becomes creepy whether he intends it or not. And there is kind of a sadness in the sonnet that I don't know if the poet intended it, but it seems implied to me. It seems implied to me that if you take comfort in somebody else's youth, that means you are discomforted in your own condition, which is kind of implied by the words anyway.
Yeah, living vicariously, right?
Because my life is breaking down somehow, which actually is, we should bring up from the past couple of weeks, since Jim wasn't here and has probably not read Sonnet 33, 34, and 35, and 36 to lead up to this. What happened was that Shakespeare had some sort of relationship with a fair youth, and somewhere around Sonnet 34, they had some sort of falling out. Broke up, whatever their relationship was. And then in the next couple of sonnets, Shakespeare started to kind of forgive him and take some of the blame himself. And then in the last sonnet, near the end of it, he said that we don't need to be seen in public together. Just you go out and live your life, and I'll kind of take some sort of happiness from the fact that you're out there being happy. And now this is the next sonnet, so it seems to me like he's now just going with that theme. But I think you're right. I think his life is broken down right now. He's not like an old man. He's not a decrepit father. But something has happened to his reputation, or something, that they can't be together.
Mm.
He's feeling that's interesting. So then you've even got this line in here entitled, "In thy parts do crowns sit, I make my love engrafted to this store." That, I want to know what that means, because that feels maybe not quite sinister, but there's something of a trying to pull the person to you, whether they should be there or not. Like I make my love engrafted to this store, so then I am not lame, poor, nor despised, whilst that the shadow doth such substance give. So it's as if to say, I'm trying to take this from you to lift myself up. That doesn't seem healthy.
Yeah, I wonder if the word store there, I have no idea what that means or what it meant in.
I think it's himself. I make my love engrafted to this store is entitled, "In thy parts do crowns sit." Is the store is himself, right? The store is
him?
His feelings of being decrepit, right?
I'm not sure.
Or is it the store of beauty,
That
birth,
you have.
wealth, wit?
Well, let's go from the very top and then get there, because I think it could, we can deconstruct it back. But let's start from the top, and I think it'll the tense will help us.
That's a good idea.
So, as a decrepit father takes delight to see his active child do deeds of youth. So that's the T-ball sonnet. So like Jim said earlier, you might have said Little League. As, an older guy is looking at his kid play Little League.
Right.
he takes delight in that. So I, made lame by fortune's dearest spite. So I'm decrepit, but not because I'm older, but because fortune has... I've run into some bad luck.
Yeah, I think fortune hasn't smiled upon him.
Fortune's dearest spite. That dearest spite seems specific. Not even just that I've lost fortune, but doesn't it feel like because so I made lame by fortune's dearest spite, it feels like fortune's dearest spite is losing love. Now then, maybe that's just me being a romantic, because I kind of am.
Oh, that's
I
good.
feel the word dearest in there as a strong word, because it's not just by fortune's spite. It's by fortune's dearest spite. And I don't...
No, you're right. Yeah, he might be talking about just the fact that he was in love and then that now is severed.
Yeah,
that is a very romantic thing to say. But you're saying it backwards. Like, instead of saying love is the most beautiful feeling in the world, you say the worst feeling in the world is losing love.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a dark but darkly romantic thing to say. Very nice, Jim Bruce. All right, so I, made lame by fortune's dearest spite, take all my comfort of thy worth and truth. Take all my comfort of thy worth, of your. So I take my comfort in your good nature.
Your worth and truth. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's sad. That's sad. I take all my comfort of thy worth and truth, which of course implies taking no comfort in my worth and truth.
Well, here's the thing. I think that this show, like a few weeks ago, I was thinking on Mike and Scott Read a Poem, that this show has just gone downhill, and the whole thing's fallen apart. But I take all of my good feelings from the show in Mike's worth and truth. And, it keeps me going. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah, that is nice.
Yeah.
Don't forget the beauty.
I'm getting to that. I'm getting to that. Jeez. He's always complaining that I'm not talking about his beauty.
Get to the beauty already.
All right, it's coming. Jeez, everybody. I'll talk about beauty when I'm ready to talk about beauty. Okay, I'm ready to talk about beauty. You guys know how much I love talking about beauty. For whether beauty, birth, or wealth, or wit, or any of these all, or more. So I think he's talking about all of your great things, all of Mike's great things, all of his beauty, his birth,
or anything, right?
Or any of your things,
or even more than that,
or even more the other stuff that you have. Entitled in thy parts do crown sit. Entitled in thy parts do crown sit. Can anybody untangle that for me?
Wow. And entitled in thy parts. Well, I think what he has just done is he's given us an example. He's given us examples of the parts. So I think the parts are beauty, birth, wealth, wit, or any of these, or all, or more. So the parts are all of those qualities, and it seems like more intangible qualities. It could be, and some tangible qualities, like beauty is a tangible quality, although you can argue about, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but you can say...
We don't argue about that here, okay? Beauty is absolute on this show, okay?
All right, so
we've been very clear about that. Okay, continue.
But it's definitely like beauty, birth, and that's, by the way, a very ancient thing, by the way, because he's also saying, look at all your great qualities. Your beauty, sure. Your birthright, that's a weird thing that you would never say now. You would never go, oh, you know what I like about her? Her lineage. You just wouldn't say that now.
She's a Rockefeller.
Yeah, you wouldn't care.
She's a Kennedy.
Point. Yeah.
I would tell you, though, if I was with a Rockefeller. I'd tell you.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't think that if you lost her, that's the part you'd miss. Unless you were just a guy who was like, she paid my rent. Like, then you'd miss it.
But I would tell you, like, if I was with somebody who was related to, like, an athlete or a movie star.
Yeah, I guess
or would you just hint at it forever?
Oh, for a while I'd be like...
just torturing everyone.
So does everybody like Forrest Gump? Yeah, it'd be kind of cool if somebody was dating his niece. All right. I don't know if Tom Hanks has a niece. Or what if I was talking about Gary Sinise the whole time? And everybody's like, you're
Gary
dating
Sinise's
Tom
niece.
Hanks' niece? Oh, no, Gary Sinise. He's pretty cool. All right.
So then I think Entitled in thy parts do the parts I think is all of those things and more. All of the intangibles, all of the physical. Do crowns sit? You're entitled to those. Those are of you. You own those.
So what does do crown sit like it's Game of Thrones?
What does do crown sit? I think it is that do crown sit maybe like a throne in as much as like somebody who you admire seems queen or king like. They seem glorious. You know what I mean? Like they seem lifted up and exalted because they're the ideal for you. So the crown is really your eyes in a way, because you sit there in the throne of adoration, perhaps.
So we are allowed to look up words on the show. We're just not allowed to look up interpretations. But I don't know that we really need to look up crowned here. I think we could just take a stab that we're saying that these things lift you to an exalted status.
Is it kind of like endowed? You're endowed with these things?
Yeah, endowed would work too. Like, it feels like we're saying that this person not only has these things, but deserves these things. So we're saying an even nicer thing. Not only are you beauty, birth, wealth, wit, you're entitled to this. You are deserving of this. You live up to all these qualities you possess.
And here we come to the line that we wondered about at the very beginning, and I'm noticing something already. There's a twist ending to this line. I make my love engrafted to this store, :
Yeah, that's what got me kind of weirded out about the word store, is that colon.
He's about to say what the store is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
so
is
that's
the
why
store.
Is store like story or like maybe I don't know, a scroll?
I feel
with
like
information
store
on it?
here is an illusion, is like a store, like a place where you would get wares. And I believe that the wares are beauty, birth, wealth, or wit. Because look, I make my love engrafted to this store, so then I am not what's usually in my store, lame, poor, nor despised. Mm-hmm. So I've engrafted my love to your store of wit, wealth, birth, any of these or all or more. So then I am not grafted to my own store, which is lame, poor, despised.
Yes, so that's the first line of the last quatrain here. So that I am not lame, poor, nor despised, whilst that this shadow doth such substance give. So your shadow over me is somehow, it's like blocking out my shame, and I get to kind of sit in your glory while you're blocking out the sun. Are we okay with that?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
That I in thy abundance am sufficed. You've got it going on, so I feel fine.
Yeah.
Now, looking at it again that way, I like the word sufficed as not quite satisfied, as I feel that word in a way. Like, that I in thy abundance am sufficed. So you have abundance, and I'm okay. You have plenty, I have just enough. That's kind of how it feels, right? Well,
it could be a romantic line if it's kind of the laid back version. If you're like, hey, listen, here's how much I love you. If we were both in a desert and we were both thirsty and I had nothing to drink, if you had enough to drink, I'd be fine. You know, I'd be cool with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also the meaning also is kind of like back in the day, sufficed. Just getting by is kind of a big thing.
Great point. Like sufficed is you're doing pretty well. Ooh, you're sufficing, huh? Look at Mr. Suffice over here.
Mr. Suffice.
Hey, that guy looks like he might not starve to death for a couple days.
Ooh, Mr. Big Shot's got 3 or 4 days to spare.
Hey, guess who ate on Monday?
Not more than suffices.
Who's got 2 thumbs and 8 on Tuesday?
Guess who's got 1 thumb? But that's enough. This guy.
I would gladly pay you Tuesday if I'm still alive. All right.
It's absurd how accurate that is. That's pretty good.
That was cheating, though, that I had a Popeye reference, and everybody's like, wow, because you guys got my Popeye reference, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
so
actually wait, what was the guy's name?
Wimpy.
Wimpy. That's
Excuse
right.
me, Mike. Were you like? Excuse me, Popeye never said. I was like,
Yeah, that's not a Popeye line.
you know, I was calling it by the show. It's not.
I
yeah,
know.
okay. So you guys might be thinking, wow, look at this quick-witted Scott here who just came up with this Popeye reference that fit perfectly.
You've
No,
been
no,
waiting
no.
to drop this line for years.
Well, that's not true either. The answer is somewhere in between. The other day, I was at a trivia night, and one of the answers was the movie Popeye with Robin Williams, and I realized that I'd never seen it. So,
Oh man, I completely forgot that he played. Popeye.
Was the question, name a movie most people think is terrible, but Jim kind of enjoyed?
it was very close to that, yeah. I mean, it had your full name. It said Jim Bruce.
Oh, okay, damn it.
Yeah, but other than that, it was perfect. You
I
got
would
it.
have lost points. I
Word
would
for
have only got a half point.
word. Yeah.
So you've got Popeye on the brain lately.
So I
huh?
do have Popeye on the brain. So yeah, I came home and only watched some of it, and then I fell asleep. But it was late. That is not a condemnation of the movie. I actually put it on to fall asleep too.
It's an okay little movie, I think. It's some of the complaints at the time were just because Robin Williams is doing such a heavy-handed is probably not the right word, but he's doing such a thick Popeye accent that sometimes it is hard to understand what he's saying. And but I kind of liked that. And as far as casting, you couldn't have had a better Olive Oyl. It was great.
Oh, who played Olive Oyl?
Shelley Duvall.
Shelley Duvall, yeah. And doesn't she kind of look like she's playing Olive Oyl in any movie she's in? So it's just kind of perfect, actually.
What else has Shelley Duvall been in?
The Shining, right?
Yeah.
So there's Olive Oyl and The Shining. That's it.
All right, so that's Shelley Duvall. We haven't come up with any trivia questions yet. We know too much about Shelley Duvall. Oh, okay, so moving on. One thing I noticed about Popeye, I watched it for like 5 minutes. No close-ups. They were never going close in on Popeye or Olive Oyl. It's something that jumped out at me. Like, hey, where are all
Is it
the
like
close-ups?
the prosthetics were just too bad? You think?
No, I don't think so. I think it was a
It's
conscious
just
choice.
cinematography.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
I think maybe he was trying to make it look like the cartoon because I don't know.
Oh,
Set
know.
design was fantastic in that film too. They really did a wonderful job. It was it looked like you went, well, there you go. That's where Popeye lives. The only thing I don't like about the movie, and it's just been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember this vividly, is because they decided they were making a feature film about Popeye, they had this weird thing where for most of the movie Popeye's very strong, but he doesn't like spinach.
oh, that's new.
Yeah, and it isn't until the climax that he's forced to eat spinach and suddenly goes, "Oh, I see. I've been really dumb this whole time because spinach is really great for me."
So it's like it's like in X-Men in the beginning, the opening credits when they show how all the mutants learned that they have their power.
Yeah,
Is
first
it
they
the
have
first
to.
time that Popeye tried spinach?
Yeah, and it's just kind of dumb because it's just. And yeah, maybe I wouldn't enjoy it now. Maybe I'd be mad. Like I said, when I was a kid, I liked everything.
I'm so upset.
Play into my point. I was young when I saw this, so I was like, "Of course, this is great. It's a movie. I like all movies except for Odie."
So I'm curious. I might want to look that up later. If I type in Popeye, film close-ups, I wonder if anybody else has talked about this. But maybe we won't look it up. We'll see. So we're really close here. We were talking about sufficing and by a part of all thy glory live.
Yeah, that completes that thought.
Yeah.
Which is, I live because of that which you cast over me. That makes sense.
Is that part the same parts that he's referencing earlier, you think?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
And by a part.
By
of
a
all
part.
that.
Or I think I'm going to take a small section here. I've carved out 1/16 of your shadow, and this is where I'm going to be.
Yeah, and I think in this context, part doesn't refer to specific. It's more just the shadow of your glory as a whole, yeah.
And by a part, just because I was part of your life, and since I was a part of your life, and now your life is awesome. Like me. I went to high school with a guy who became an NFL. He's in the NFL and has had a long career. And so I'm, look at me. I was part of his life. Aren't you impressed?
And you're still living through all his glory today.
Yeah. I got to look up to see if he's still playing next year. I don't know. And then the couplet at the end starts with "look," which is great because it sounds very modern. Look,
Look.
What is best? That best I wish in thee. Whatever is the best thing in the world, whatever it is you want. Look, I don't know what you want. Whatever it is you want, or that should happen to you, I hope it happens to you. This wish I have, then 10 times happy me.
Oh, so he's wishing that more than his own happiness, right? Or is he saying, yeah, if I get that, then I will be happy, yeah.
This wish I have, if I were to have this wish, then 10 times happy me. I would improve my happiness by a factor of 10.
Yeah,
this is all about living vicariously.
Yeah, and that last, it's funny because I've thought this forever about this kind of stuff. It's like, it's a very nice sentiment. The sentiment, of course, is that, hey, as long as you're happy and you have that which you want, then I will be happy just knowing that. And that's a nice sentiment, and it's ridiculous. Nobody
it's
feels
got deeper,
that way, really.
a deeper meaning.
Nobody really feels that way, is all I'm saying. As long as men and women and men and women and anybody have been trying to be together, somebody's expressed this thought, and every single time they've never meant it. Nobody ever really means that.
Just as long as you're happy. I think after time, when both parties have moved on, when you find out that that person is doing well, I think then there is some possibility for you to say, oh, I'm very glad that they're doing well.
No, here's the thing. I think that that's true, that after time when you're, when you've excised yourself from the pain of the moment and when you don't feel quite the same way you did. But the funny thing is this is a person who says, yeah, I'm still crazy about you, and I'm just so happy you're happy. And that's not true. Like, you're right. Like, when you get divorced of this situation and you take a step back, I recently, not that recent, but recent enough, saw my first girlfriend, and I was delighted that she had a child, and I was delighted that she has a life, and that it all makes sense. But had I saw her in the middle of her having broken my heart, I certainly wouldn't go, well, this is great. I wouldn't have felt that. It was the time apart, but I couldn't, in the middle of still being in love, say, oh, I'm so happy you're happy. And the fact that it's with someone else, even better.
Here's another way to go with it. If you do feel like that you've moved on, okay, and then you see that person, and you find out, they got married, they had a kid, everything's happy, their lives are great. And you're like, hey, I'm really happy for you, that's cool. And then you say the first part of this poem, I am going to take all of my happiness from you. I am going to let your great things in life make my life better. That would be a very creepy way to go with it.
There's also some like overarching storyline of what these sonnets are kind of referencing, like the storyline that's going on in the sonnets.
Yeah, this might be a rope-a-dope thing. Like next sonnet, he might get mean again.
Yeah, he does do that on and off, right? But
that's actually kind of great if he does, because that's
something bad happened between Shakespeare and his lover, right?
Or the fair youth.
But did we understand if they broke up on purpose, or was it a breakup that had to happen because of some outside influence?
Well, one of those websites like SparkNotes or something hinted at the fact that once we get to Sonnet 40, it's going to say something about the fact that the fair youth stole one of Shakespeare's lovers. Possibly.
The fair youth themselves was a lover, weren't they?
Possibly, we're not sure. It seems very much so.
Yeah, because I think it felt like the earlier sonnets that we had read were sort of referencing the fact that the fair youth was kind of pleasure of the flesh, like really based on looks.
It seemed undeniable at the time, but, you and I don't keep good records. We read a sonnet, we move on. So it's hard to tell.
So is life.
Yeah. How many sonnets did we feel that this is for sure a physical thing? I don't know. A few. But yeah, there was some sort of fight, and then he seems to be in some sort of forgiving stage, but I don't know if this positivity is going to continue, or maybe next week we're going to see something negative again.
Oh yeah, and there's also a very good chance that a lot of this might be sarcastic.
Every once in a while that pops in.
It does.
Do we have anything else to add here, or are we ready to start hitting the books?
Yeah, I think I get it as far as like as much as I can give to this, because I think some of what I feel about this is just what I feel about if I were in this situation, having less to do with his intentions. But I feel like I understand Shakespeare's intentions here. I feel like I got that. And then I'm like, wow, man, I just think this is sad, which I don't know that he intended it to be sad.
I think you're right about it, because
that's what's cool about having the different interpretations of it and the different viewpoints. It's like, you might bring something up that nobody really thought of before.
I think you're exactly right that he's sad, because he feels like he's on the losing end of this relationship, that the fair youth is somehow rising and he is falling. I am a Little League dad watching you play Little League, and I'm more into it than you are. Because my life has really gone down, but I see there's a spark in you. So everything that's great about you, that's what I'm going to cling to. That's where I find my whole worth. And, if you grow up to be a big league ball player like I know you want to be, then I'm just going to be the happiest Little League father there's ever been.
Right.
And that's the story of the Little League father, which is, we think, the answer to Sonnet 37. We'll be back with the correct answer on Mike and Scott Read a Poem.
And my feeling that nobody actually really feels that way, well, that's just my feeling. That has very little to do with what Shakespeare intended.
So we're back on Mike and Scott Read a Poem, and Jim is going off on the word fantasy and the modern interpretation on No Fear Shakespeare. So continue.
Yeah, so No Fear Shakespeare, it's just got this guy tells us what he thinks it is. He interprets it, and it's a nice translation into comfortable modern English. And yet here he goes. I'm attaching my love to them. I'm not lame, poor, or despised as long as this fantasy of mine lets me take so much satisfaction in your good luck, and I can live off part of your glory. Mm-hmm. The word fantasy, that is not an interpretation of any of the words we didn't understand. There's not one word that we didn't get that he was like, oh, well, this means fantasy.
Yes, you bring up a good point. So it makes me look back and see what in the world gave this guy the idea of fantasy there, right? And the closest thing I can see is maybe the shadow reference.
Shadow and substance.
Yeah, I would say the shadow or the store would be the closest thing. Like, I make my love engrafted to this store, so this ideal of you.
Okay, yeah, I can see that that's where you grabbed that from. I just don't think it's there.
If I had to.
Yeah,
you forced me.
I'm not taking this position, but I took it upon myself as a challenge. I was like, oh, okay, well, let's see if I could twist something on here.
Yeah, no, that I can see that. It just feels to me that's what's great about poetry, to be honest. And that's what's great about poetry. That's what's great about paintings, is that there's what's actually on the painting, that what's on the canvas. There's what's actually in the text. And then there's that crazy thing you bring to it.
Yeah, in the ether.
There's also, and then here would be a romantic view of the fantasy angle. If I have this fantasy about you, and we can't be together because we know in these series of poems that they're not going to be together, and it's like, look, I know that we can't be together, but here's what I want you to do. Go out and live a really awesome life. And when I see what an awesome life you're living, it's just going to fill me with so much happiness, and that I'm going to be able to continue fantasizing about you. But if you go out and have a terrible life and you squander all of your talents and your beauty, then it's going to be hard for me to remember this feeling that I have for you. So you have to go and live a great life in order for me to be happy, so that I can have this fantasy of you.
It would be great if it, just by coincidence, whoever this young love was, it would be great if they were also an acclaimed poet, just so that they could write a sonnet that more or less was like, hey, Come on, man. I don't need that kind of pressure. I need to go out
What's with that? What's up
I
with
don't have
that,
to
man?
go kill it just to make you happy.
Yeah, don't ask me to live my life for you. I have enough trouble living it for me, okay?
Oh my goodness, this is it's too much. Why you
pressure.
Just do your own. Look, you're old. I get it. I'm going to be old too.
You're talking to your psychiatrist and like, now what is this pressure you feel? This guy told me to live a happy life so that he could be happy, and it's too much pressure. Like, well, why did you agree to that? Well, I didn't agree to it. He said
wrote
it in a beautiful sonnet.
He just said it. Yeah.
It's hard to ignore. Yeah, so we're not advising you have this feeling for other people. So, I agree with you. I didn't see fantasy in it unless you...
No, actually, reading back, I kind of see where he's getting the fantasy from in the original text. So then, I am not lame, poor, nor despised. He really is. But he's saying,
I won't
because
be,
he's taking all of his happiness from them, I'm not these things.
Yeah.
And while this shadow doth substance give, substance being like, real world substance, touchable stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If the fantasy of me not being lame, poor, or despised, then I'm totally fine with that. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
I can see that. That in a way implies something that I don't think was intended, because it doesn't feel like Shakespeare saying, I'm suddenly gonna believe I'm not lame, poor, nor despised. I don't think he's going to be living under a fantasy. Rather, it's that, sure, I am these things, but these things no longer define me because I define myself by seeing how glorious you're living. So fantasy to me implies a kind of delusion. That's the problem I have with the word fantasy, I think.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't think he's referencing it, though, as, like, I'm actually going through this delusion. Like, I know it's a fantasy. Like, it's maybe an outside reference to the fact that it's impossible for him not to be lame, poor, despised.
Sure.
It's like, maybe, yeah, okay, I know it's a fantasy, but hey, as long as that fantasy is happening in real life, things are going good for you and I'm happy, that's enough for me. Just maybe. That's just what I
could see that.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a good way to live your life, but it is a beautiful way to live your life. It's a very romantic gesture that you're going to tie all your happiness to this other person. It's just, it's just a poem. Hopefully Shakespeare really did work through these things, but it is a beautiful thought to be that much in love with somebody.
True. I absolutely do. Listen, I think I told Scott this. There was a girl that I was seeing, and I would write her poetry. And I wrote her a lot of poems.
Oh, man, that's so romantic.
They were all limericks. Don't get excited. They were dirty limericks. All right? Jim didn't tell that part of the story.
And I'll tell you this much. This is something I learned. The women love it when you write in poems. You know when they stop loving it? Right around poem 20. That's too many poems.
Notes.
Right around poem 20, they go, well, okay, listen. This is great, but...
Yeah, they're telling their friends around 3 and 4, like, oh, he's so romantic. And then around 8 and 9, they're like, yeah, he's really creative. He's really good at this. And then around 12 and 13, it's like, yeah, he's still sending them. And then
that's because he got into the shower scene sonnets. You went a little too deep into the shower scene sonnets.
So what do you think of his latest poem? Well, I need a place to sleep tonight.
And I'm deciding to change my name to Elvis. I'm the other brother. All right, and Liam Neeson's going to play me. So do we have everything that we wanted to say about our looking... Oh, so we didn't come up with a grading metaphor. We're always supposed to come up with a grading metaphor. We didn't do it, so I'm not going to air the show. This is all a waste.
What's the
Maybe that
metaphor?
can be the grading metaphor, is how airable the show is.
Okay. Is it broadcast ready, podcast ready, or
yeah, drunken story,
or play it on the speakers of your cell phone?
Now, is this now, explain the grading thing? Are we grading how accurate we think we did?
Yeah,
that's exactly it.
No, we trust the websites. Look, I know that we've already questioned whether or not No Fear Shakespeare was right or wrong to put fantasy in there. but we take the aggregate sum of what the different websites said it was about, and we kind of compare it to what we said, and we just say, were we close to what they said, and we take their word for it. So do you feel we were close to what they said?
Yes, I think we were close because I was looking at between the two of them. I think we were close, and probably if we had our tough teacher, we'd get a B.
Okay.
Because, because as I'm looking at the on ShakespeareSonnets.com, if you look at some of the like meat and potatoes of like allegories to Christ and the references that we, of course, none of us were like, hey, this part was like Christ.
Yeah.
And then also Shadow and Substance, they spent a little time talking about that and interesting things. It wasn't like I think, this is nonsense. It's less like they went a level deeper with the Spade as far as that goes, and we're like, oh, I see. So I think we'd probably get a B, but if we had a nice teacher and this was say a community college, I think we get a solid A. This is an A plus at a community college. It just depends on how far along we are in expectations from the teacher.
Okay. Now, if we were drawing a Venn diagram of what we said and what the website said and where it connected in the middle, would it have a very big part in the middle?
I think so. Absolutely.
All right, which leads us to a trivia question, and that's why I brought it up, even though I thought that that's what you would say. Who named the Venn diagram? Who is it named after? Who is Venn? Does anybody know?
I'm guessing it was a Sir. He was knighted. Sir something Venn.
I am going to say Venn. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't even have anything funny. That's how little I know about that.
Here's what I'm going to say it's from. There used to be a vending machine that sold Sprite, and you had to choose like a little bit of lemon and a little bit of lime, and then like right in the middle, that's where you could get Sprite. And then so that kind of looked like a diagram, and it was on a vending machine, so it became the Venn diagram.
You know what? I will buy this. I will buy that as long as we all understand, and if we can all agree that Sprite is terrible, I'll agree with that. Man, I don't enjoy Sprite.
Jim is a Sierra Mist guy, so we're gonna look up the Venn diagram. I'm
classic 7-Up. I'm an old man. I like 7-Up.
Okay,
I like a 7-Up. Or
man,
even,
I haven't had a 7-Up in years. I really want one now.
I just find that it's crisp.
Mm-hmm.
It tastes
cool, refreshing,
clean, no caffeine. It's a very old commercial. Crisp and clean, no caffeine. Never had it, never will, guys.
So, was there anything else to add to what the website said?
I really like the perspective that Jim brought to it of there's a bit of sadness, I think, going on.
That's what happens when you bring Jim on a show.
But it's like something that I haven't really looked into in any of these sonnets is like the sad perspective that Shakespeare brings to this.
And that's why I have you on the show. Because I wanted to always be happy. That's why you're in my life. And Mike, if you ever turn and you're not happy, I'm going to lose all my glory. Like, I'm taking all my glory from you. Yeah, I need to be in your shadow. So we're going to look up the answers to the trivia questions, and we'll see if I can continue living in Mike's shadow. Oh, I forgot. Hold on. But before I do that, can I ask you, can we look up to see if Popeye close-ups is a thing? Like if other people point out how few close-ups there are? And then was there anything else that we wanted to look up? Or that's it?
Shelley Duvall?
A few Shelley Duvall movies. I know she was in a movie called Mother Goose... something about Mother Goose and rock and roll. I think Bobby Brown was in it. So, we're going to look up the answers to the trivia questions on Mike and Scott, and Jim read a poem. So you guys have Shelley Duvall movies. So,
she was in Wishbone.
I don't know what that is. Anyway.
It's that dog who plays characters from history.
I'm very glad that you were so passionate about this one because
You gotta
we're
see
back.
Wishbone!
We're back on Mike and Scott Read a Poem. We have answers to trivia questions. I want to start out by saying I guess there's nothing interesting about the lack of close-ups in Popeye because nobody on the internet's talking about it. And I know that it may seem like it would be an obscure thing, but if I was right, people on the internet would be talking about it. And
Somebody would be, yeah.
yeah, and they're not. So maybe I was tired and my eyes were closed every time there was a close-up. But it just seemed that for the first 15 minutes of the movie, I never saw anybody's face. All right, so I was wrong about Popeye, but I'm going to do Venn diagram, and Shelley Duvall's going to be our closer tonight. All right, everybody's okay with that?
Yeah.
Yep.
The Venn diagram was conceived around 1880 by John Venn, and that's Venn. That's his name.
Wow.
And
Was it
used-
Sir John Venn?
You know what? Let's look up. So it was for elementary set theory. Oh, this guy has a big beard. Probability, logic. Okay, so he has a big beard. Yep, and he is British. Is he a
here we
sir? Doesn't. I think it would have said sir right up there. Yeah, so he has. If this is any consolation for you, he has. Venn is commemorated at the University of Hull by the Venn Building. Okay, so at this University of Hull, there is a Venn Building. Is that enough for you?
That's
That's
pretty
great.
good.
Okay. So that's John Venn. All right, let's go some Shelley Duvall movies. You guys will go back and forth. Let's start with Jim.
Well, I'm just going to say it's crazy to me that she has an album. Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall. Sweet Dreams, an album she produced. What?
Wow, Jim already wins the competition.
We gotta
I'm
hear
sorry,
it.
Mike, you didn't. It was an ace. You didn't even get to return serve.
Ugh. I just fell out of my chair.
Yeah, and all of my tennis tournaments are the same. First to
How
1
insane
point.
is
It's first
that?
to 1 point. Wow. So she had an album. Is she singing songs or is she? Is it spoken word? Is it comedy?
It's songs, and what's funny is it says that it's something she produced for a show for the song Little Kids World from her album Hello, I'm Shelley Duvall, Sweet Dreams, as part of the Nick Jr. Rocks program she produced for Nickelodeon, which sounds like such an absolute just, I'd really love to make an album. No one will let me. Hey, what if I produce a show for Nickelodeon, because they don't have any money, so I'll be able to produce. Hey, how about I produce the show? You know what? And just for fun, I'll do an album. And the whole time, it was all about her making the damn album.
Or maybe she was like, "Hey, I look like a cartoon, so maybe I should do something for kids."
Yeah. Or they just saw her walking by, and she's like, "Hey, how did you get out?" Because they're convinced she's a cartoon.
Yeah, you get back
How'd
in
you
there and
get
sing
out?
songs like all good cartoons are supposed
She
to
has
do.
got an interesting face. When I was a kid, I don't think it struck me that she is very attractive. She's probably less so now. She's an older lady now, but
Well, not necessarily. Yeah.
or maybe I'm sure she's a
Nothing
beautiful
wrong with
lady.
the old ladies, you know.
No, yeah, absolutely. But what an interesting face.
Yeah.
Not a traditional beauty, and what a crazy career. The Shining, Annie Hall, Time Bandits. I mean, those three movies are all hugely influential in different regards. Wow, that's pretty
And
crazy.
some possibly less influential movies. Mother Goose, Rock and Rhyme.
Very influential on my life, apparently.
Oh, nice. You can find the whole movie on YouTube.
Well, maybe you could find it. All right. Go
Just
ahead.
do a search for it. So I'm going to be watching that tonight.
So isn't it great? Wouldn't you guys agree that it's great that here we are looking up Shelley Duvall's film career and it's inspiring us? Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. My goodness.
oh, yeah.
it is.
It's kind of making me feel better about my life because I haven't been feeling great about things lately.
Right.
I think maybe that's why I kicked you off the show, Mike, and why you kicked me off the show and why I felt like I had to bring in another character this week. I think it was just because I've been feeling kind of down. There's just nothing really to root for. But I gotta say, looking at Shelley Duvall's film career, it just fills me with all this hope and good feelings, and I just really feel like I could take on anything. And you know what? I'm going to come back next week, and I'm going to analyze some more Shakespeare.
Because you have the reflected fantasy of
Of Shelley Duvall. Yeah. It's making everything okay. And I hope it does the same for both of you. I'm talking about our listeners, and also for you, Jim, and you, Mike.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're a lifesaver, Shelley Duvall.
All right.
We love you.
A big thanks to Shelley Duvall this week here on Mike and Scott Read a Poem.
Are you going to open up the show with the sadness stuff from the very beginning?
I didn't think
I'll
about
just
that.
reference that.